So ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to a dedicated, brand new DC News Roundup video. And today I am a very happy Boba because, you know, quite a portion of this video is going to be about lanterns. Now, this is quite a whiplash after just not so long ago hearing that now it's going to release late summer, most likely August. But out of nowhere, guess what? The Lanterns teaser has been shown. Maybe not to me or you, but hey, it's been shown and we have some descriptions out there of the trailer. So what I'm going to do is react to what the details are from what people saw, the vibes of what people saw of the teaser, and then we're going to get into some other DC stories today. So go ahead, like this video if you go on to enjoy it. It really does help support the channel, so thank you so much if you've gone ahead and done that. And if you're into DC, you're into news updates and movies and all that kind of good stuff, consider subscribing because you're absolutely in the right place. So Lanterns unveiled its first teaser at HBO Max's Upfront in Sao Paulo. So initially here, we've got a description of the teaser from omelette.com, and that's what I'm going to use first. And this is what they have to say. The teaser shows that Hal Jordan, Carl Chandler, and John Stewart, Aaron Pierre, have already been together for some time, training for months, but that Hal Jordan is a kind of substitute teacher for the new Lantern. The preview doesn't reveal who he's replacing. The vibe is that of a Western, appropriate since the story takes place more in rural areas of the US, full of brownish tones, something that repeats in the costumes. The two clash, with John arguing that he's better than Hal at saving people. We see a brief scene of Hal Jordan flying, but the uniforms of the two haven't been revealed. Finally, there's a brief mention of the Squirrel Green Lantern, probably Chip, a character from the comics. So just to put that out there, this is I'm seeing this kind of go around the translation of what omelette.com said. So this is, I'm pretty sure Google Translate, but we do have some other descriptions that I'm about to get into. So right from the top here, the teaser shows Hal Jordan and John Stewart having already been together for some time. I didn't actually expect that. So what I've been saying, and I guess thinking for the longest time, is that it could basically be inspired by I think it still will be, but it would take maybe more from John Stewart's first appearance in the comics, where Hal Jordan is contacted by the Guardians and he needs to go train John Stewart, and reluctantly so. Just kind of, I think the vibe that I've been thinking with regards to Hal in this series is that I don't know what has happened. I've got some ideas, but he's definitely had a Lantern legend past, like a very active Hal Jordan superhero past, to the point of where, you know, he's been regarded as a Lantern legend. But I don't know whether something happened with regards to Carol Ferris in the past decade where he's become a bit more disgruntled. That kind of hero story, it sounds a bit cliche, I know, coming back into action because the Guardians contact him. Not so much, obviously, like John Stewart's first appearance in the comics, but as I always say, adaptations don't copy and paste, but they'll mirror a similar thing where they're like, Hal Jordan of Earth, like, yeah, basically you need to, there's this guy called John Stewart, you need to kind of, that kind of thing. But it turns out that they've already been together for some time. But one of the things that it does seem that they're going to take influence from with John Stewart's first appearance is how they don't start off on the best foot. I think that's something we all assumed anyway. Like throughout the episodes, even if you want to compare it to that of True Detective, like Woody Harrelson's Marty and Matthew McConaughey's Rust, they also didn't start off on the best terms, but by the end, especially in that finale, you know, you can't not imagine them showing up for each other at any given point in time. So I've always suspected a similar thing with Lanterns. But it's very interesting to see that he's kind of like a substitute teacher. I think that does feed into the whole reluctance that maybe we've been theorizing that Hal Jordan could have with John Stewart. Maybe they've got the wrong idea of each other, but they'll learn that they both complement each other fantastically throughout the show, because they're going to have to work together with whatever the heck this ancient, terrifying mystery is that they stumble across, this ancient horror on Earth, as James Gunn puts it, which, you know, we've dived into quite a lot on the channel. I mean, I know I'm rambling, by the way. You're going to have to bear with the Boba ramble here. I'm darting off in all kinds of directions. Now, yes, as they say, the preview doesn't reveal who he's replacing. That is super intriguing to me just because, we know Guy Gardner's in this series. Now, I don't know if Guy Gardner would be the one who was meant to be or had originally been taking on Jon Stewart under his wing in this adaptation in live action. It would be kind of similar to that first appearance where the Guardians contact Hal Jordan to train Jon Stewart and take him on because Guy Gardner got injured and kind of taken out. So like he needed his kind of backup. So, hey, let's train Jon Stewart just in case, right? So not too similar, but like I can imagine maybe they might do something with that because we know Nathan Fillion said that he's had some scenes in Lanterns and he worked with Aaron Pierre's Jon Stewart. So I don't know, but that could just be something completely unrelated where Guy Gardner just has a scene with him anyway. Maybe they could bond with their dislike over Hal Jordan, but then maybe Guy could be like, look, kid, like as much as I feel you about Hal, he is worth listening to. Or, so I don't know. Again, we're going down the rabbit hole of theories here. So up next here, we have Matthias Latore. I probably butchered that name. I do apologize, but I saw a trailer for Lanterns. So let's go over what he said. This was the setting for the HBO Max Upfront 2026 event in Argentina. No spoilers. I can say it looks different from any superhero show that's ever been made. The True Detective vibe thing is true. That is something I've had no doubt about. I know the Lanterns fandom don't quite know how, at least feeling a lot of trepidation surrounding the Lantern series. And I do get it because there are things right off the bat that are subverting just, expectations of how you would have thought they would do a Lantern series in the DCU. Perhaps Hal Jordan younger and things like that. But what I will say is the True Detective vibe thing being very true is just like from the get-go, the True Detective inspiration. I'm like a fish to the bait there. I really, really am. I really love the concepts. Like if I was in the pitch room, I know a lot of people wouldn't agree with several of the pitches, but I would hear this and I'd be like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. A more adult Lanterns kind of show, True Detective inspired, but still not shying away from the fact that this will require literal magic rings where they fly. And speaking of getting onto the next part, here's the thing. If the chapters are like what I saw, so I assume that means episodes, because again, this is translated on Twitter from Spanish, so do take this with a grain of salt with Twitter translation. The constructs and such will only be a minimal part of the series. The important thing is the characters, and they are great, I think that's meant to mean. Aaron Pierre is going to steal the show, but Kyle Chandler seemed magnetic to me. Say what you will about the decision to cast or like have Hal Jordan at this part of his life. Fully understand the takes there. But with it being what it is, I'm a big fan of Kyle Chandler. I've watched him in things for years and years. He definitely does exude Hal Jordan, albeit, yes, Hal Jordan at this part in his life. Granted, we actually technically don't know the in-universe age for Hal Jordan. Even though Kyle Chandler was 59 when he was filming this, they could still say he's like 49 in universe. But I think, that doesn't really alleviate people's concerns in terms of where they decided to pick up with the character. But Aaron Pierre, I'm also very happy. I think a lot of people are there. I know not everyone, obviously, you can't please everyone, but I'm very happy with the castings, and it's great to hear that, Aaron Pierre's going to steal the show. Kyle Chandler seems magnetic. But going back to the constructs, at least from what they vibed from that sneak peek, they feel as though it could be a minimal part of the series. Now, to play the benefit of the doubt here, I do think that we shouldn't lock that in as a cemented thing, because this is a sneak peek. I don't think it would be a trailer. Speaking of which, by the way, like this has kind of made me readjust my idea of when we could see a trailer, because initially I thought, okay, we're going to see it very soon alongside Supergirl, perhaps even before the end of this year. But then Lanterns is now maybe going to be mid-August. Okay, well, with our first previews of The Penguin and House of the Dragon Season 2 that I keep giving you guys examples about, our first previews, teaser, so not like official trailer, but teaser, was 6 months prior. So I thought, okay, well, we're not seeing Lanterns, a sneak peek for that until, maybe February. But now that they've decided to already show this, granted to press at the upfronts, it is making me kind of think, could we get to see something like this ourselves at some point soon? Maybe knowing my luck by the time I post this video, but I don't know on that. But going back to this, it is just a sneak peek. So you're not going to see all of the lantern constructs, lantern powers, flying, this, that, and the other right away. I know people are going to read this, and by the way, this might be correct in terms of how there might not be so much usage of lanterns, constructs, and powers, and, you know, cosmic-y kind of things as you would want to see in a Lantern series throughout the 8 episodes. That might be 100% correct, but you just can't get that from a sneak peek. You just can't. It's not like they're showing you episode 7, minute 25 out of a 52-minute episode where the next 5 minutes could have been pretty crazy lantern stuff, right? You get what I'm trying to say, but I understand apprehension. Moving on to the next bit, I fell in love with the rings design. Yeah, I really want to see that up close as well. See what kind of cool stuff they do with that. As for the suit, the controversy is coming. It's similar to one we've already seen, but it's definitely not a fan favorite. And they decide to link the Earth One Lanterns kind of designs, the same ones they used in the DCU Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters announcement video. This isn't guaranteed, but he is saying it's not a fan favorite. I will say I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Earth One Lanterns, like an adaptation, an influence from that comic book design. And maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I actually don't mind the idea of that. I think with what I've accepted this show to be, like, I actually fully expect them, and I know people don't like hearing this, you know, to not necessarily walk around in their suits 24/7, especially if you're trying to do a murder investigation in a small town. You know, are you going to walk around in kind of glowy green suits? I know, like, in the fantastical comic book universe, you can argue to me, but Boba, isn't that what the DCU is? You know, that kind of thing, just like in the comic books? I hear you, but yeah, you're going to have flying lanterns with glowing green rings. You might try and incorporate something grounded at the same time where, yes, they do get into Green Lantern suits, similar to maybe Earth One, but if you're trying to be a bit more low-key, you might not walk up to William Mason's house, you know, played by Garrett Dillahunt, knocking and be like, "You see this big green glowing symbol here, boy?" You know, I don't know if they're going to do that. So, you know, I can understand why they might not be in the suits all the time. But even if they were the Earth One suits, I feel like that does kind of match the vibe of this show, right? I mean, to be fair, any Lantern suit, even a more popularly loved suit, would be received very, very well if they nailed it, right? But I'm just saying, for what it's worth, in my opinion, I am pretty sure I would like the look of that when it's revealed. So then we had Matthias Latora quote, tweet Home of DCU News, and Home of DCU said Hal Jordan was seen flying with their Green Lantern suits still being kept hidden for now, and they said in the trailer I saw a suit is shown twice. I don't know if a different trailer was released in other parts of the world. We had Matthias as well, like, quote tweet someone else, say, but every outlet except you is saying that the suits weren't shown, something is off. And then Matthias says, look, I love it because they're sounding like accounts that are saying I'm lying. Oh my god, I repeat, I saw a suit in 2 different scenes. It's based on the design of a specific comic, but it's not the same. I don't want to spoil. So I'm thinking that either it's the case that there was a couple of different versions of this trailer, which is odd to show that, but at the same time, apparently the suits were visible during the flying that people were praising, like in the show. And that's what I said earlier. Maybe you could make it out and you could kind of make out which design it was based on. So quick flying sequence, maybe it got a glimpse, but some people, or a lot of people, may have just missed that. I don't know, obviously. I haven't seen it myself. This remains to be seen. But Matthias also says the look and feel is the key. The people who are hiding something, the mystery references several and very good ones. There's a part that will stir up controversy due to a possible contradiction with the DCU, but I assume it will be explained. I have no idea what that could be. A possible contradiction to the DCU. Like, genuinely, like the scenes we had with Guy Gardner, I'm trying to rack through my brain right now and things he said in Superman, but like, and even if something was said in Lanterns, I don't think he said anything that could be contradicted. I guess we're gonna have to wait to see whatever that could mean. And really looking forward to watching the series, to seeing these characters in that setting and what they might end up doing. That said, don't expect space opera, but rather a crime series with people flying around. The flights look really good. End of thread. What I'm reading now is exactly what I expected out of this show. I think maybe what might get some backlash initially when we finally see this is that people, sure, a bunch of people may love the kind of True Detective kind of vibe and demonstration of how Gunn is executing different creative visions in the DCU, different tones than just Peacemaker, Creature Commandos, and Superman, right? And that's what I keep telling people. You've now got 3 projects: Supergirl, Lanterns, and Clayface, written and directed by different people. And people might joke with that, but then it might clock with them again, like, oh, but these are, these are Green Lanterns. So would you really expect a crime series? Not necessarily, but I still don't think it's a bastardization. Sure, you may want a certain thing, and, there's nothing wrong with expecting a certain thing out of Green Lantern things, but if you were to hypothetically pick up with a story with Hal Jordan and do a criminal investigation, something that, sure, you would have thought these Lanterns would be out in space, but clearly something so serious is happening where it's warranted, Lanterns' attention, to bypass the sheriff, bypass the FBI, bypass whoever else, to go all the way up the rungs of the ladder to have Guardians, I assume, put Lanterns on the case. That's nuts. So that's why the story is here on Precinct Earth. There's clearly something that the story will explain that needs them to investigate this. I don't think that invalidates, at least from what we're aware of right now, the concept of this show. No matter what with stuff like this, though, you kind of need to, watch it to actually make the verdict, though, right? So overall, I think those are the main details. I mean, I guess I didn't speak about the reference or the brief mention of a squirrel Green Lantern, and they say probably Chip. I can just imagine there was a line or something where Hal says, oh yeah, a squirrel, and Jon Stewart's kind of like, squirrel? And, it's like establishing, okay, there are all kinds of Green Lanterns out there. Now, we also know there's going to be flashbacks in this show. There's going to be young Jon Stewart, family scenes, present-day parents of Jon Stewart. Same goes for Hal Jordan. And from Green Lantern DCU updates here, according to IMDb, Henry Samiri will be playing young Hal Jordan on Lanterns. Now, I know it's IMDb, but this is something I actually kind of do believe because we know, this is going to be a thing. So it just wouldn't be surprising if this Henry Samiri was playing, indeed, the young Hal Jordan. But we're going to get, Ulrich Thompson playing Sinestro. Could he be consulted in a present-day scene where Hal goes to a science cell or something like that? Or is it going to be flashbacks? I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a mix of both, but again, we could get into a whole discussion series video about this, which we will be doing soon. I'm just kind of trying to save a full in-depth nerd out with you guys until we actually maybe see this for ourselves. But overall, I am liking what I'm hearing. I'm glad that people are really liking the flying scenes as well, because, it's interesting, right? People are worried about how grounded this kind of could be, but at the same time, one of the most praised things apparently from this sneak peek is the flying. Now moving on to some other DC tidbits before we end this video. So we have Supergirl news here. Ferdinand Kingsley, Silo, but I know him as Hob Gadling from The Sandman. Oh my god. That episode, Men of Good Fortune, still hits me. Has joined Supergirl as Elias Knoll, Ruthie's father. Now I am telling you, this guy will be amazing. And again, without giving too much away about Supergirl whenever I talk about it, his character and given the quest, the plot of the movie that Supergirl helps Ruthie out with, I think he's really got the potential to tug at our heartstrings here. Honestly, I see it. I have so much faith in Ferdinand Kingsley that I know whatever brief time we get with him in the movie, he's going to steal the show. Now, speaking of Supergirl, ladies and gentlemen, well, they've made the Supergirl account. Like, literally, Supergirl film, Supergirl. This is all literally gearing up for CCXP. CCXP, just round the corner. Supergirl trailer, Supergirl Twitter page now appearing, Supergirl interactive booth on its way. Get ready for the trailer. I know we keep saying this at the minute, but like, it really is around the corner. And we're going to get our first peek at Millie Alcock beyond the Superman movie and what Craig Gillespie as a director is like in the DCU. Something else other than Gunn, and Anna Noguera with the script that she penned for an adaptation of Tom King's Supergirl. Now, over in the realms of the Batverse, this one really intrigues me. So, coming from DC Film News here, but this has been kind of widely re-reported. The Batman 2 is set to film Gotham City exterior scenes in Glasgow and Liverpool. And I was kind of like, when I first saw that, it was, no shit, Sherlock. Obviously, they're going to be filming in the same cities they filmed in for the Batman to make up Matt Reeves' Gotham, which is forged from multiple cities. You know, also Chicago. But then I was like, oh, I see why people are talking about this, because it says this January. But we know that Matt Reeves said they're not filming until April, but it will maybe even likely be May. So why is this being reported as January? So this is coming from GlasgowWorld.com, and I've read this article, and I don't want to go into it with bad faith for the person who wrote the article, because maybe they know something that we don't. But they just simply say that Luke Cole, the production designer for Matt Reeves' directed sequel, has shared photographs, as we've covered here on the channel, of the filming locations. If you didn't know already, if you weren't there for that news roundup, like he over on his Instagram, he's already been in the city. Like, he's been, you know, they're in the thick of pre-production. He's been keeping himself busy as the new production designer, replacing James Chinland. And then on the next paragraph of the article, they say the Batman Part 2 has entered pre-production, with filming set to begin in January 2026. They don't really cite why that is, or like, I don't know if they're aware that that's kind of a big kind of deal to claim that when that's not actually the actual production date. Now, there's two explanations to this. The first one is that the writer of this article, obviously being called Glasgow World, and the Batman is going to film in Glasgow again, you might do a piece on it, right? And they may have looked up when it's filming, and if you guys remember a few months back, the whole story about the Batman on those production list websites, or Production Weekly, whatever it was, they put out dates for January as filming. And usually they're tentative dates. They're not strictly lying, but they're not insanely accurate either. But now we know the dates, and it's April/May. So maybe they just kind of did some brief research and just saw that, and they were like, oh, okay, well, January. Or, as it's being suggested, what if they know something we don't? They had access to something that we don't know about right now, and they found out that some filming, like getting a second unit down in January to get some exterior shots a bit earlier on, and, you know, the whole point of a second unit, after all, is to kind of save time and kind of expedite production. But that would still be a bit early, like, even if you want to go with that option. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring this up because I know if I didn't bring it up, people are like, boy, Boba, you're not talking about the Batman 2 filming in January. So those are my 2 cents on that. I don't know. I really don't know. It's not the kind of filming that you should be losing your shit over, basically. Not until April or May, anyway. Then, as for Man of Tomorrow, we have Nicholas Hoult reaffirming that it is indeed shooting in April. I can't reveal anything, he says. I'd get into a lot of trouble, but we start filming in April. We know this. This is accompanied by Gunn posting a new stack of storyboards ready for the crew on Monday morning. This is all very much so as kind of, again, in the Batman Part 2's camp. They're both in the thick of pre-production. And this is why everyone is kind of it's just not surprising if any week now you just hear some big piece of news, whether that's the casting for Brainiac, whether that's a rumor or a scoop about the Batman 2's new Rogues Gallery villain, or like another side character being cast that it's kind of like, okay, what role could they play? We are on the precipice of all of this, which is, you know, again, I've said this many times, but some of my most exciting conversation that I love engaging in is the pre-production phases of movies and then going into shooting, because it's when things are like so unknown and you can just speculate so much. I mean, I always temper my expectations and try and keep them in check, but that doesn't stop me from theorizing about stuff. And it's only going to get more exciting from here on out if you're excited for these upcoming productions, which I assume if you're watching this video, you probably are. We've got Supergirl coming around the corner with a trailer. Maybe this Lanterns upfront sneak peek could be shown because obviously it's ready, but they might decide to show that a little bit later maybe early next year, but it would be pretty dope if we got that in December. Not gonna lie, it would be pretty dope if we got that today. But that is everything I'm gonna ramble about in today's video, guys. Let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments below. Absolutely itching to see what you guys have to say about what I have to say. If you're still here and you're still watching right now, I would greatly and deeply appreciate a like. I know it said every video, but seriously, every like counts to supporting the channel and it helps me out in the algorithm. Consider subscribing for more updates just like this. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.